The perimeter of a square is 72 centimetres. The square is cut in half to make two identical rectangles. What is the perimeter of one rectangle? So we need to remember that the perimeter is the total distance around the outside of a shape. And we have a square, so we know that all four of our sides will be the same length. So to find the length of each side, we can divide the total length, divide the perimeter by 4. 72 divided by 4 is 18. So the square has side lengths of 18 centimetres. Now we can see that the rectangle will have lengths of 18 centimetres, but because it's been cut in half, the width will be half of 18, and 18 divided by 2 is 9. So because our rectangle will still have a length of 18, but have a width of 9, we need to work out 18 plus 18 plus 9 plus 9 to work out the perimeter, so work out the total distance around the outside, and that gives us 54 centimetres. People in a village were asked if they shop in the village or in the town or in both. The bar chart shows the results. Altogether, 246 people took part in the survey. How many people shop in both the village and the town? So we know that 152 shop in the village and 197 in the town. But some of those will be people who shop in both. So if we add up the total number of responses, so add 197 and 152, that's 349. But there were only 246 people taking part in the survey. So if we find the difference between 349 and 246, that will give us the number of people who shop in both. So that's 103 people. Chloe and Denise each bought identical t-shirts from the same shop. Chloe bought hers on Monday when there was 15% off the original price. Denise bought hers on Friday when there was 20% off the original price. Chloe paid 35 pence more than Denise. What was the original price of the t-shirt? So the difference between 20% and 15% is 5%. So because Chloe paid 35 pence more, we know that 5% of the original price is the same as 35 pence. So if we know 5%, how can we work out the original price? Well, the original price will be 100% of the price. So we need to think 5% times what is 100%. Well, 5 times 20 is 100. So if we multiply 35 pence by 20, that will give us £7. So the original price of the t-shirt is £7. The diagram shows a cuboid. What is the volume of this cuboid? So to find the volume of a cuboid, we multiply the length, width and height. And we have the dimensions on our cuboid, so we just need to work out 10 times 10 times 6. 10 times 10 is 100, and 100 times 6 is 600. So the volume, the amount of space that the cuboid takes up, is 600 centimetres cubed. Now, the volume of a different cuboid is half the volume of the cuboid above. What could the dimensions of this different cuboid be? So we know that the volume of this cuboid is 600, so half the volume will be 300. So we can think what times what times what is 300. Well, we could have 10 times 10 times 3, because 10 times 10 is 100 times 3 is 300. So notice, If you halve one of the numbers in the dimension of the cuboid, so halve either the length, width or height, you halve the volume of the cuboid. You can leave the other two the same. Write the missing number to make this calculation correct. We have 18 plus something times 32 equals 777.6. So we have brackets in our calculation, so we do what's in the brackets first, and when we multiply what's in the brackets by 32, we get 777.6. So we can find what's in the brackets, the total of what's in the brackets, by dividing 777.6 by 32. We can use long division, but we need to remember that if there's a decimal in our dividend, we copy up the decimal point into our answer. Now to divide by 32, we need to work out the 32 times table, and I usually like to do that up to 5 times and then look back at the question. So taking the first two digits together, we have 77 divided by 32. So we need a number in our 32 times table that's as close to 77 as possible, but not more than 77. So that number is 64. And because 64 is 2 times, we can write 2 in our answer line. Now we subtract and bring down. 77 minus 64 is 13, and if we bring down the 7, we have 137 divided by 32. The closest number to 137 is 128. So we can write that below, and because that's 4 times, we write 4 in our answer line. Now again we subtract and bring down. So that means we have 96 divided by 32, and because that's exactly 3 times, we can write 3 in our answer line. So we know that what's in brackets must give 24.3, because we found using division that 24.3 times 32 is 777.6. So 18 plus what gives a total of 24.3. Well, if we subtract 18 from 24.3, and remember, if we're subtracting a whole number from a decimal, we can put a 0.0 on the end, line up our decimal points, and then when we subtract, we get 6.3. So that's our missing number. 18 plus 6.3 is 24.3, and then when we multiply that by 32, we get 777.6. Vicky puts 10 books on a shelf. The 10 books take up 28 centimetres. What is the mean, average, thickness of her books? So to find the mean, we divide the total by the number of things that we have. So we need to work out 28 divided by 10. That's 2.8. So the mean is 2.8 centimetres. Because when we divide by 10, the digits move one place to the right. So the 2 that was in our tens becomes 2 in our ones, and the 8 in our ones becomes 8/10. The other way to divide by 10, if it's a whole number, is to imagine the decimal point at the end, and then to divide by 10, we can move the decimal point one place to the left, and that gives us 2.8. Look at this information. Tom was born in 1988. Ben was born in 2000. Tom and Ben have the same birthday. The ratio of Tom's age to Ben's age on their birthday in 2001 was 13:1. What was the ratio of Tom's age to Ben's age on their birthday in 2003? Write the ratio in its simplest form. So if Tom was born in 1988, that means in 2001 he was 13 years old, and if Ben was born in 2000, in 2001 he was 1 year old. So in 2003, that's 2 years later, Tom would now be 15 years old and Ben would now be 3 years old. So the ratio of Tom's age to Ben's age could be written 15 to 3. But we want to write the ratio in its simplest form, and we simplify ratios in the same way that we simplify fractions. So we divide both numbers by a common factor. 15 and 3 are both in the 3 times table, so 15 divided by 3 is 5, 3 divided by 3 is 1, so in its simplest form, the ratio can be written 5 to 1. And what this ratio really means is that for every 5 years that Tom has been alive, Ben has been alive for 1 year. Now, in what year was the ratio of Tom's age to Ben's age 3 to 1? So we know that in 2003, Tom was 15 and Ben was 3. So in 2004, Tom was 16 and Ben 4. In 2005, Tom 17 and Ben 5. And in 2006, Tom was 18 and Ben was 6. And 18 to 6 simplifies to 3 to 1, because 18 and 6 are both multiples of 3. So if we divide 18 and 6 by 3, we get 3 and 1. So that means the year was 2006. This cuboid is made from centimetre cubes. It is 4 centimetres by 3 centimetres by 2 centimetres. What is the volume of the cuboid? So to calculate the volume of a cuboid, to calculate the amount of space that it takes up, we multiply the length, width and height. And because they've given us the dimensions, all we need to do is to work out 4 times 3 times 2. 4 times 3 is 12, times 2 is 24. So the volume is 24 centimetres cubed. These patterns are drawn on square grids. In pattern A, the ratio of black squares to grey squares is 1 to 2. What is the ratio of black squares to grey squares in pattern B? So in pattern A, we have 3 black squares and 6 grey squares. So the ratio is 3 to 6. But we can simplify ratios in the same way that we simplify fractions, so by dividing both numbers by a common factor. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2, so that's why the ratio in pattern A is 1 to 2. Now we need the ratio for pattern B. Here we have 4 black squares and we have 12 grey squares. So the ratio is 4 to 12, but we can simplify this ratio because 4 and 12 are both in the 4 times table. So if we divide both numbers by 4, we get the ratio 1 to 3. The diagram shows 2 overlapping squares and a straight line. Calculate the value of angles X and Y. So they've told us that the shapes are squares, and we know that angles in a square are all 90-degree angles, because angles in a square are right angles. So we can write 90 on the corners of our squares. We can also remember to find angle X, that angles in a quadrilateral, angles in a 4-sided shape, add up to 360. And we have a quadrilateral here because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. So if we work out 90 plus 90 plus 125 and then subtract that from 360, we get 55 degrees for angle X. Now we need to find angle Y. Now notice angle Y is in a triangle, so if we find the other two angles in our triangle, we'll be able to calculate angle Y. Now vertically opposite angles are the same size, so what that means is that if two straight lines intersect, then the opposite sides will be the same. So if this angle is 125, this angle here will be 125 as well. So that's one of the angles in our triangle. To find this angle here, we can remember that angles on a straight line add up to 180. So we have 90 and 60, that's 150, and if we subtract 150 from 180, that gives us 30 degrees for this angle here. So now we know two of the angles in this triangle. So we just need to remember that angles in a triangle add up to 180. So if we know two of the angles, if we know that this is 125 and this 30 degrees, we can subtract the total. So subtract 155 from 180, and that gives us 25 degrees for angle Y.